More than 20 years ago, I used to live in South Africa. And while I lived in South Africa, one of the things that was much easier for me to do was to get a job. And it was so easy that most of the people could not believe how I could easily get a job in South Africa. And I remember my first job that I got in South Africa. I worked for a company called Donkerhoek Data. This company was on a farm and they used to repair computers, write programs for farmers, and also they used to teach how to work with computers. So at this time, I was staying in South Africa, but I was still not having papers to be able to get a job. So I decided to go to this farm and speak to the owner of the farm. And when I went there, I asked them if they can teach me how to use computers so that I can do a course. But I didn't have money, I told them. So they said, but if you don't have money, how are you going to be able to do this course? I said, you can give me any job and I'll be doing the job for free. So the owner agreed. So I used to go to this company, work there in the morning, and then in the morning I'll be doing my classes, and after lunch I'll start working. So I was working with a guy called Franz. He used to repair the computers, and my job was to dismantle computers and clean them inside. And sometimes he would help show me how to put the computer together. So that is how I easily managed to get a course for free, but working for it. Now, after I finished my course, the owner of the company called me to his office and said, "You know what, Ted? We have decided to give you a job, and uh, we'll be paying you while you're doing your job." So, because they saw that I was willing to work, so they decided to give me a job. So that was my first job in South Africa. I actually went there and asked that they can train me how to work with computers. And in the end, so that I work for the course. But at the end, I managed to get a job. And the second job was when I was married with my wife. I went to a factory that was packing fruits called Stellenpack, and I got a job there. Uh, and I was stationed at a position where they make boxes, and there was a machine that was folding boxes. These boxes are boxes that are used for packing the fruits. So um, when I worked there, I worked with a guy called Fanny. He was the machine operator. My duty was to load the machine with cardboard so that it can be folded into boxes. And Fanny was always operating the machine. And when I went home, I used to tell my wife, I said, I would like to be operating that machine. And I know that one day I'm going to operate the machine. And she said, but how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, but I believe that one day I'm going to be doing Fanny's job. I'll be operating the machine. So what I used to do is every time Fanny would come operate the machine, I'll stand behind him and watch him how he was starting the machine or how he was stopping the machine. If there's any machine downtown, how was he resetting the machine? If a cardboard is stuck, how was he able to pull out the cardboard and restart the machine? And this factory was very, very big. It was a very big factory. Um, you know, Fanny used to just wander around. So he will switch on the machine, and it was an automatic machine, and then he will be wandering around in the factory. And while he was doing that, me, I took it as an advantage to stand in front of the machine and observe the machine as it was performing. And if there is any downturn to the machine, and I say a cardboard is stuck in the machine, I'll pull it out myself and then reset it and start the machine. And then one day, Fanny came back and he saw me doing this, and he just smiled. And I knew that he discovered that now he has got an opportunity to be wandering around the workshop and not worry about uh, what will happen to the machine, because he knew that I knew how to operate the machine. In the meantime, for me, I knew that this was an opportunity for me to show the bosses that I was able to operate this machine. So in the workshop, in that factory, there was the offices were on a mezzanine, and the boss would sit there and he would be observing the whole workshop. So the boss was able to see me. He would stand on the big glass with a cup of coffee in his hand. He's observing the warehouse, and he was able to see me operating this machine. And then what happened was, when a certain day we went off over a weekend, when we came back to work, we found that there was a new machine now at the factory, a brand new machine. And we were called, all the people working around the machine, we were called to the machine, to the new machine, and we we were told that we bought a new machine, and from now onwards, the guy to operate this machine is Ted. My dreams had come true. You know, if you dream about something and and you believe that you're going to achieve that dream, it will really happen. So there I was working as a uh, box folding machine operator at Sterling Park. And then every time I went home, you know, in the workshop, there used to be, you know, when the fruits are they were packed in these boxes, and then they will be put on a pallet, or on a pallet. And the guys who are working at the pallet site were called palletizers. So these palletizers will be putting the boxes on the pallet. And then at the outside this warehouse, there was also another warehouse where, after the fruits are packed, they will be taken to that warehouse. It was a cold store. We used to call it a cold storage. We used to call it the cold store. And then uh, from the cold store, there was also a team of guys. They were wearing white dust coats, and these people were looking. They were the guys that looked very special in the workshop. Every time they walked into the workshop, we would just be looking at them, you know, admiring these guys. They were carrying scanners in their hands. They were called scanners. In Afrikaans, they were called scandidiers or something like that. So they would come, and they will put a sticker on each pallet. So they will say, okay, today we are packing apples that are going to Japan. So they'll put a Japan sticker, and they'll put a barcode, and then they will scan. They will scan the box and then put information in the scanner. And when I went home again, I told my wife, I said, I want to work at the cold stores. And she said, how are you going to do that? I said, no, I believe that I will be working in the cold stores one of these days. So one day I went to the admin office, and I spoke to the ladies there, and I said, I have the interest to work in in the cold storage as a scanner. So whenever there is a position, please let me know. And then they told me, they say, oh, no, Ted, no, don't worry. When there's a position, we always put it on the notice board. So you must keep on watching the notice board. When there's a vacancy, then you must apply. And mind you, this factory, they were not speaking English; they were speaking Afrikaans. You know, it's in Cape Town, and around the Boland and the farms, and the language is Afrikaans. And I didn't really understand Afrikaans, even speak at all. So uh, every time they put a notice on the board, then I'll always ask somebody to explain to me what is going on. Yeah, so every now and then, I'll check the notice board, and uh, because I didn't understand the language, I'll ask my wife to come, because we were, at the time, we were all working together. Me and my wife were working together in this factory. My wife was on the side where they were packing fruits. Me, I was at the box folding side. And I'll call her to the notice board, and I'll say, what does the notice board say? And she'll explain me. And like enough, one day there was a position, and I applied for it. So I was selected as one of the trainees, and we went for training. So you can see, I made an effort. I went to the office and asked for if that when there is an opportunity, that they shouldn't forget me. So when you are working at the company, don't be afraid sometimes to actually request for a promotion, or find out what process you need to go for you to get a promotion. All right. It's early in the morning, so I'm sure the light it won't be so nice. So sometimes the phone is not showing good picture. The next time was when I got a job with Woolworths. It was very interesting. Woolworths. because as you can remember, at this time now, I was married to my wife. I was waiting when I was working at Sterling Park. I was still waiting for papers because I had applied for permanent residency. But now I got the papers, and now I applied for a job at Woolworths. And then they called me for an interview. And before I went for the interview, I went to CNA bookstore, and I went there to buy look for books that will help me with this interview. So I bought a book which says how to attend an interview, and also I bought a book which was called Help and I'm a Manager. They were looking for interactive officers. It was the first time Woolworths was implementing deli, the food site where you can buy pies and chicken and samosas. So we were the first. It was actually we were going to be the first people to be rolled out the whole South Africa. So we were the first at Powell's branch. So I studied my books very well, and I did very well in the interview. I was very well prepared, up to a point that I impressed the manager, or the branch manager there. His name was Mark Titus. He was very impressed with my interview, so I got the job. Now, while I was working there, I learned something about, like, planning. I used to plan. The way Woolworths works is that uh, they, they make their profit from less waste. Woolworths, they want to give people quality food and very fresh food. So most of the food that they're selling, it has got maybe like 24 hours expiry date. So it can't stay more than a day, or sometimes can't stay more than 2 days. And if it stays more than 2 days, it is removed as waste. So if you're a good manager, you have to plan your stock so that you don't have a lot of waste. And this was very interesting. And I'm a thinker. I like to think, so I enjoyed working at Woolworths and doing this planning. So I used to plan, like, during some days I'll order a lot of pies, and I'll order maybe a lot of chicken. Some other days because what I did, as we were working, after 2 months I was able to know which days of the month gets very busy, which days are very quiet. Like sometimes in the middle of the month, there's pensioners, I will add more pies. And sometimes it's when I hear that there's a function in town, there's a school, some private schools are having some function, and then I would make more pies so that we don't have less waste. So yeah, I was doing very well, and I remember the boss calling me and saying to me, Mark calling me and telling me that we eyeing you for controller, so you'll be controlling this department. And lucky enough, Grand West Casino advertised for positions for supervisors. They were looking for supervisors, and experience in supervisory was an advantage, but all they needed was standard 10 certificate. So yeah, it was an opportunity for me because at that time in South Africa, most of the companies were implementing what they call BEE, Black Economic Empowerment. So the casino was a brand new casino. They never worried about you having experience, and they were saying they were going to train you. And I managed to get this job at Grand West, and as a supervisor. Can you imagine? I was like one of the, if not the only foreigner in the team, and also we were about maybe 4 or 5 blacks. They took about 26 supervisors, and when we started rolling out this casino was the first casino in the world to use a smart card system, not to use tokens. So instead of putting tokens in the slot machine, we were using a smart card. So the customer will buy a card, ATM card, and then they'll be putting it in the machine and playing, and then the money that they win will be transferred in the card. When they finish, they'll take the card to the counter, cashier's desk, and cash the money out, and then they go home. So this was a very decomplicated system. It's computerized, and every now and then there was going to be some glitches going on. And in the first 3 months, or first 3 or 4 months when we worked there, I had mastered the system there. I was able to open a slot machine and reset, find faults and everything. The way I did it was, whenever there was a problem, we as supervisors in the casino, we were called on the radio. And at that time, the attendant who was helping the customer would just call for any supervisor to come there. And most of my fellow supervisors never were interested to run and go and solve these problems. But I knew that we were just new. I needed to do a lot of problems, solve a lot of these problems so that I learned fast. And I knew, uh, when I go and deal with this, because the reason why most of the supervisors were not willing to go to always respond to a call, it's because they didn't want to go and mess up. They didn't want to go and make mistakes. But for me, I knew the more mistakes I make in the early days, the better, because then after 6 months, 7 months, the company is not going to tolerate anybody who's going to make a mistake. But within these 3 months of rolling out, if you make a mistake, they will know that you're still learning. So for me, I was jumping for every call that people called. Every time a person calls, I used to go. And when I'm stuck, I used to call a technician. And when a technician is busy working with the machine, I was always focusing, watching what he's doing. And I came up, sometimes I even came to a point where I was able to do technical stuff on the machine that were not even related to my job. So whenever there was a problem, the technician would tell me, next time the machine does this, do this. And the technician loved it, because there was about 1,350 slot machines in the casino. So the technicians were always busy being called up and down. So if they find somebody who can help them, like solve the small minor problems for them, it was an advantage. So they started teaching me things, and I was learning a lot from the technicians. By the end of 6 months, I was able to pull reports on the machine for the machine. I was able to do calculations to see how much money discrepancies were happening in the slot machine. If a customer lost some money, the money disappeared, I'll be able to trace the money, and then the customer will be paid back. By the end of 1 year, I was very good with the casino problem, solving casino problems. And then when a position came from for a job as a shift manager in Kimberley, I jumped for it. And it's a very interesting story how I got this job. I remember when I applied for the job, um, the manager from Flamingo Casino was coming to interview us there at Grand West, and my fellow supervisors who had applied for the jobs were called and told when the interview was going to happen. I remember they told one of our managers called Skak, and told him that you need to tell these following supervisors to come for an interview. I wasn't told about the interview. So on the day of the interview, I still didn't even know that I was supposed to attend an interview. So I was, and on that day, I was off. I don't know if it was coincident or what happened on this day, because I was off. I didn't work. I was not working. I was at home. And in the morning, the phone rang. And when I answered, my cell phone rang. And when I answered, and the man said, "No, my name is Dan. I'm a casino manager from Flamingo Casino, Kimberley. Why are you not in the interview today?" So I said, "No, I didn't know anything." He said, "Why? You didn't know?" I told your manager there that they must tell you that you're going to have an interview today. I said, "No, I didn't know anything." Then he said, "Can you come for the interview?" I said, "But can't I come tomorrow, because I'm not prepared?" He said, What do you want to prepare for? Just come this afternoon." So I said, "Okay, I'll come." So I went there. When I entered into the interview, the man just said, "Okay, Ted, you've been a supervisor here since the opening of the casino." I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, my name is Dan. I'm a casino manager from Kimberley. I'm looking for shift managers, and I would like to interview you." And so I said to him, "But like I told you in the morning, I was not prepared. I always prepare myself for an interview." He said, "No, don't worry, just relax. It's not like a train smash." And all he did was to take a report that he had pulled for one of the slot machine discrepancies. And he said, "Do you know how to solve a CZ15?" I said, that's actually my food, my breakfast." And he smiled. And then he gave me this, and he gave me the paper, a pen, and a calculator. So I took the paper where the question was and the pen, and I took the calculator, I pushed it back to him. He said, the calculator is for you to do the calculations. I said, no, when I do the season 15, I don't use the calculator. And he was laughing. I just did my calculations and there, voila, the answer, and I gave it to him. And he just looked at the paper and he said to me, you know what, Ted? I have been to many casinos and I've interviewed even managers, and very few, if not none, has been able to do it, solve it in a record time and get it right like the way you have done. When I was walking out of that office, I knew that I've got a job. And there I was promoted, and I got myself a job in Kimberley as a shift manager. And unfortunately, after working for 1 year, I resigned to start business, which didn't work, and the business failed. I had to go back and look for a job. And I remember one day when I got back, before I got the job, I used to sit in the streets, and I was selling in the streets some sweets and cigarettes, and life was very difficult. And I even was regretting quitting my job in the casino. But now, one day, my wife was looking for a job also, and she went into a furniture shop. They called her for an interview, and after interviewing her, they asked her, they said, but are you a South African? And my wife said, yes, I'm a South African. And they said, no, we don't believe it. She said, yes, I'm South African. I was born here. I'm from Paarl. I grew up in Nederberg. They said, but you don't sound like a South African. Where do you get this? And she said, no, I get it from my husband. They said, your husband? Tell us about your husband. So she started telling the people in the interview about me, that my husband is from Malawi and he's the one who has inspired me. He taught me all this, how to attend interviews, how to respond to questions in an interview. They said, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then the next day, they called my wife and said she got a job. And at this time, my wife had applied for 2 jobs. One was in the bank, and then this job, which was a furniture shop. And she told them, oh, I'm sorry, I got another job. And they said, give us your husband's number. And she gave him my number. And then me, while I was busy selling in the street, my phone rang, and this lady said, Mr. Kwereveta, am I speaking to Mr. Kwereveta? I said, yes. And she said, I would, don't you want a job? I said, no, at the moment, I don't want a job. I'm doing my own business. She says, how is your business doing? I said, oh, it's a big struggle, but I know I'll get it right. She said, no, Mr. Kwereveta, we spoke to your wife and we in an interview, and we were impressed with what she told us about you. We think you are a natural salesman. So we would like you to work for us. Please, Mr. Kwereveta, work for us. And I said, no, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't. And she said, okay, can you come on Monday? So that we can just talk, just for us to talk, Mr. Kwereveta. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I said, I will give it a go. When I went to this office, the furniture shop, it was called Fair Deals. So when I went to that office, the lady said, oh, Mr. Kwereveta, you're here. I'm very happy to meet you. And your wife we were so motivated when we interviewed her, when she told us about your husband, and I'm very happy to meet you. I said, follow me. She took me to a room, and then I found there's already some papers and a pen. She said, Mr. Kwereveta, we want you to write this test. I think it was an it's called aptitude test or something like that, or aptitude test. And there I was. She said, just answer, just answer innocently. Give us, it will be asking you questions, and we just want to know a little bit about you. So I was like busy, taking. When I finished, and it was the whole day, but because there were different types of aptitude tests that I had to write. So later in the afternoon, I finished, and she said, okay, Mr. Kwereveta, just hang on a few minutes. I just want to go through this paperwork for you. And when she was gone, she came back. She said, Mr. Kwereveta, congratulations. You have done very well in this aptitude test. And you are a natural salesman. We would like you to work for us. And she said, when you get, we employ you, we'll pay you a salary, you have medical aid, and also you have provident fund. That's how I got the job. I had a job that I never even applied for. So yeah, there I was, a salesman in a furniture shop. And when I was working at this branch, they were also looking for a manager to run the branch. So they brought a guy who was a closer guy, a black guy. So they brought him to run this shop. Sorry for that. To run this branch, and he was a trainee manager. He was one of the guys, sales guys that they hired, and they wanted to train as a branch manager. So this guy was also having something to prove to the big bosses. And at that time, this shop was lacking salesman, sales personnel. There was two sales ladies. The one was called June. She was the one who was carrying the shop, because without June, the shop would close, because June was making a lot of sales. And now they added myself and another guy called Trevino. So me and Trevino, we were trainees there, being taught how to sell. And I remember Moses used to tell us and say, Ted, selling is a very interesting field. And for you to be able to make good sales, you need to learn how to sell. You need to learn, like, being able to read buying signals. That was the first word I heard about sales, buying signals. So I asked, I said, Moses, what is buying signals? He said, no, buying signals is when you are able to read the customer's body language when they walked in the shop, and you will be able to know this customer wants to buy or that customer doesn't want to buy. I said, but how do you learn that? He said, okay, you see June over there sitting on that desk. If you want to learn how to read buying signals, you have to watch June every time. So every day I used to sit and watch June. When people come in the shop, June will look at the person and will look down. And indeed, if we run for that person, try to sell, the person will tell us, I'm just looking, and we just walk around the shop, and you are just escorting him around, and he goes out without buying. But most of the time, 70%, when a customer walks in the shop and June stands up, she will be writing a deal. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. How does she know that? So I started now to look at the customers, how they are approaching the shop, how they're entering, and I see what June's reaction was. And then I will see June will just ignore the person, June will stand up. Then I started knowing, okay, all right, so a person who's buying, this is how they enter the shop, and this is how they walk, and this is what they do. And I started learning. So I started also now, when June is busy writing a deal, I'll be able to catch some of the people, and then I started making sales. And this was noticed by our regional manager. His name was Mr. Zen. The regional manager, he came one day to our branch, and then after he had a meeting with the bosses, the sales team, and the manager, he called me. He said, Ted, I would like to see you. So when I went to his desk, and he said, Ted, I'm very impressed with the way you are performing, and you know what, you have got a future in this company. One day you're going to be a branch manager, and you can even grow into a regional manager, because you are a natural salesman, because we see your sales, the way they're doing. And he said, every time I come to this branch, feel free to come to my desk and just to say hi. I said, oh, thank you very much. And then when I walked away, I was like, wow, so I'm a salesman. Why am I selling furniture? I need to be selling Mercedes Benz and Toyotas and driving nice cars. Yeah, so I realized that no, I need to, if I am good at sales, then I need to go to a very good industry where I must do sales. And then it happened again. My wife, she had a friend who was working for a farm called Boschendal. This farm was making wines, and they also used to grow grapes. And they were having a chat because they had worked before together. And then this woman was like, by the way, what's your husband doing? She said, no, my husband is working for Fair Deals as a salesman. She said, oh, why doesn't he come and work here at the wine tasting center? I think he would do much better. And then my wife said, yeah, you think he would do better? She said, yeah, send me his CV. So my wife sent the CV to her friend. And this lady just forwarded the CV to the manager at the wine tasting center at Boschendal. So one day while I was working at Fair Deals, the phone rang and said, Mr. Kwebeda, my name is Jamil. I would like you to come for an interview at Boschendal. I was shocked. I said, what, Boschendal? He said, yes, come for the interview. So yeah, I went to Boschendal for an interview. And before I went there, I had to do some research. I went on the internet and did the research to find out what Boshinder was about, the wine, and I had no experience in the wine industry, you know. So yeah, um, there I was in the interview at Boshinder. But before I tell you more about the interview, don't forget, if it's your first time, to like the video, subscribe, share the video, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this story I'm giving you. Uh, how did you do your interviews? How did you create your opportunities wherever you're working? Yeah. So yes, there I was in the interview uh, with Jamil Lekrif, the manager of Boschner Wine Tasting Center. And he said, "Tell me, Ted, tell me why the wine industry." I said to him, "Opportunities for learning and growth. I want to learn the new thing. I want to be in this wine industry and learn about wines. And I know that in the wine industries, there are very few blacks, and the opportunities for me to grow are very, very high." And he just smiled. He said, "That's a good one." And the next day, he called me to go and started working at Bosch and Dow. So I started working at Bosch and Dow. And I had no idea about wines, and my job was to do wine tastings to customers, take them in the cellar for cellar tour. So we were given some training, like about 2 weeks training, to learn more about tasting wines and all those things. And this was something new for me. I really loved it, and also I loved the wine tasting the most, because like I was actually asked to be the one to taste the wines every morning to make sure the wines are not bad for tasting. So I used to love that part very much. And then what I did was, at the time, I used to go to the internet cafe and learn more about wines. So within a month or two, I was able to tell stories about wines to customers and make my wine tasting very interesting. And lucky enough, I managed to get a job with Boschendau Wine Estates. And at Boschendau Wine Estate, I will tell you one day how I got a job at Boschendau. And I think the title of that video is going to be "How to Attend an Interview," how to excel in an interview. It's one examples of how you can market yourself and how you can sell yourself in an interview. But okay, I worked at Bosch and Dow, and there at Bosch and Dow I was doing wine testing again, and I realized that Bosch and Dow was part of Distel. And Distel, for you guys in South Africa, you know what Distel, they make Amarula, they make Savannah. And I said, I would like to work for that company. I went home and I told my wife, I said, you know what? Bosch and Dow is a subsidiary of Distel. And one of these days, maybe by next year, I'm going to be working for Distel. She said, how are you going to do it? I said, I know I'm going to do it. And I know that I'll be employed. So when we were doing wine tastings, the sales reps from Distel, they would come to the farm with their clients or the customers who they sell wines to, and they will do wine tasting, and they will ask for one wine tasting assistant to help them. And I was always the one lifting my hands. So I was starting to get to know the sales reps. So I remember when they came, these sales reps, they came with the people. I would try to make the wine tasting good, and the seller tour very good. And then one day, these guys, they were having a meeting with their boss. The sales reps were having a meeting with their bosses. And one of my friends, who was also wine tasting assistant, he was the one who was serving wines. And then he said he heard them, one of the sales reps saying to the boss, that guy working at Nittensdorf as a wine tasting assistant, he should be working with us because he's very good at selling. He's a good salesman. And that guy, when he told me, I knew now I'm in the right direction. So eventually, I managed to get a job in Distel as a sales rep. And I was given a company car, I was given a cell phone, entertainment allowance. That was very, very nice. And that's how you market yourself when you want to get a job, and even when you want to get a promotion. Like for instance, for me to get the job as a Distel, the boss of Cape Legends, which was a branch of Distel, came to our our testing center and then asked for some people to help at the festival. There was a wine festival in Cape Town. So I volunteered to go there. And our duty was we were working with a restaurant called Wang Thai. This restaurant was selling Thai food. And then my job was to let the customers taste the wine and to sell the wine so that when they buy the food, they must buy a glass of wine together. So the wine that we were selling was called Gewürztraminer. It's a spicy wine. It's very nice. So this wine, they were like saying that we must because it's a spice wine and it was listed in the Wang Thai restaurant because of its spiciness, because Wang Thai sells spice food. So yeah, it was the intention was to sell the wines for Wang Thai. So the wine that we were selling was wine that was being sold by Wang Thai, but me, I was as a representative of the wine, was supposed to be convincing the people to be buying this wine. So we sold a lot of cases. I finished all the cases that were available on that day for Wang Thai, up to a point where my boss had to go to our wine estates and get more Gewürztraminer to sell there. And I remember the last day when we did the testing, my manager's name was Debbie Wyman. Is Debbie Wyman, and then she said to me, "Ted, thank you very much." I said, "Thank you for what, Debbie?" She said, "For coming and doing this." I said, "But I should be thanking you for giving me the opportunity to come and sell this wine." She said, "No, thank you." And then I knew that I was already having a door in the company to work for her as a sales rep. And indeed, I eventually worked for Debbie as a sales rep, and I enjoyed it. That was the last time I worked. I was employed in South Africa. I resigned and came back here into Malawi. So yes, I just wanted to share this story, more especially to you South African friends, because I know that most of the people they struggle to get a job in South Africa. But if you are determined, if you equip yourself with information, it's much easier for you to get a job. Next time, I'm going to do a video which will be explaining how you can actually excel in an interview. I'll try to make it more detailed. I'll make it so sweet, so short and sweet, and even more detailed. But what I can say is for you not to miss this video. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe, and if you love this video, share, leave a comment, tell us your experiences where you've worked before. I would love to hear that. Thank you very much.